Ciao, good morning. I'm going to talk a little bit about reading. And this week we're talking about reading together in class, and you're sharing with me. I'm going to share a little bit with you. So let's talk about effective instruction. High quality instruction includes research-validated instructional practices like explicit instruction and research-validated core reading programs. And those are tier 2 programs a lot of times. What are the essential components of reading? Well, in the US, we consider the following things. The reading components are phonological awareness, phonics and word study, fluency, vocabulary, and reading comprehension. And this chart shows when those things get taught. So just in the early grades, phonological awareness, and then adding in the others throughout the primary grades of kindergarten through 3rd grade. Well, what are those features of effective instruction? Explicit instruction, having a clear purpose for learning, beginning lessons with a statement about goals and objectives, clear and understandable directions and step-by-step explanations with adequate modeling and demonstration, clear, consistent corrective feedback on student success and errors. So those are those features. Systematic instruction with scaffolding means breaking down complex skills into smaller parts that you sequence them appropriately, give students opportunities to respond, opportunities to practice with immediate corrective feedback. Okay, we're going to see these principles in action. One of these is explicit. The one on my left is in blue, and the teacher says, what sound does I make? Or what sound does I make? What sound does T make? She writes the word it on the board and asks, what is this word? Okay. The other one, the teacher says, what sound does I make? What sound does T make? Let me make the sounds. Listen to me make the sounds. It. Let's blend them together. It, pointing to the word. She says, let's say the sounds together. It. What is this word? Okay, so which one is explicit? I didn't answer that question. I think you can do that yourself. Now let's think about the main idea. What if you want to teach kids about the main idea and you have a different teacher, not you, but a different teacher says the main idea of the text tells the most important part of it. Reread Uphill Fighters, some story, and then tell me the main idea. How could you make this more explicit than just asking students to do it on their own without your support? Okay, well, let's keep going and see if you get some ideas. If you're using features of explicit instruction, you're going to say the main idea. You're going to say to your students, the main idea names who or what the story was about and the most important thing that happened to the who or what. And you can model it. You can state the main idea for a story that was just read. And here's one. For example, salmon is the who or what in the story. It's a what. The most important thing about salmon is that they are popular fish because they have good taste and they have good nutrition. So the main idea is salmon is a popular type of fish because of its nutrition and taste. Okay, so the model in this systematic instruction is also called a gradual release of responsibility, or the GRR model. And that you don't need to remember the name, but I'm going to abbreviate in my slides, GRR. I do, the teacher models, thinking out loud. We do, the teacher gives assistance with the doing of a task. We do, again, where students are working more with less support from the teacher, but the students are also getting some guidance. And then the you do, where the student is trying on his or her own. And then the second time is independence again, independent practice, where we're hoping the student will achieve mastery. Okay. Other people use the same model and don't necessarily label it as this gradual release of responsibility, but it's very common. You're going to see it again, not in the writing week. Okay, we're going to come back to this. Let's do another example. Let's say there's a book, and this is a children's book, and Finding the Problem is the name of the book. It's an early childhood story. I guess the book is actually called What If Everybody Said That? What if everybody said that? All right, so this is going to be from a child thinking about other children and what they say. Okay, so the reason the book was chosen by the teacher is because on every page there's a problem and the pattern is easy to follow. So it's a good example. And then on the bottom of my slide, there's a bunch of letters, C, C, S, S, ELA, etc. This means that in the US, this is a standard that teachers are expected to do in kindergarten, and that's the one that the teacher chose. And so the standard itself is, with prompting and support, identify character settings and major events in a story. Okay, modeling, thinking out loud. Might be like this. Today, I'm going to read you a story, and on every page, there's going to be a problem. A problem is when something happens that is challenging or hard that upsets the characters. When you hear a problem today, you are going to show me a thumbs down. First, I will show you. And then this is from the book. In art class, we were drawing dogs. I looked at the other kids' pictures and said, "Those don't look like dogs to me," and I laughed. Now, the teacher thinking out loud would say, "Uh-oh, those words are not very kind." And look down on this page. All the students look upset. I am putting my thumb down. This sounds like a problem. The problem on this page is that the girl said unkind words about other students' artwork. She said, "Those don't look like dogs to me," and then she laughed. And the teacher might do this again, reading the next couple of pages of the story. Okay, now here is my first entrance ticket question. They're going to be short. But my question is, in Vietnam, do teachers think out loud when they are reading stories? Okay, to young children, do they think out loud about what they are learning or what the story is about? Okay, let's keep going. Then the teacher would do the we do. Move my camera here. Now it's your turn to give it a try. You will use your thumb to show me if you hear a problem in the story. Remember, a problem is sometimes something that upsets the characters, making them sad or mad. Listen to the words and look at the pictures to think about the problem that is on the page. And then we'll read another page from the book, and I'm going to move my cursor here. When a boy in my class got glasses, I said, "You sure look funny." The principal heard me, and he shook his head. The teacher, I see many hands or many thumbs go down as I was reading. Yes, we have a problem on this page. Now think and raise your hand. What words or actions were the problem on this page? Okay, now there might be a couple more examples, a couple more pages with feedback to the student. The you do would depend on this children's independence level, okay, and the disability or not disability. Okay, so the you do can come in at different points depending on if the kids are ready. So the students do a turn and talk with a partner. The teacher monitors and checks in as students take turns, where one partner says the problem on one page, another partner says the problem on another page. So now every student is working together, but they're getting a little bit of independent practice. And maybe the children go back to their seats and draw a picture of the problem the teacher was reading about. Okay, so that's I do, we do, you do. Okay, so I'm going to go on and talk about a couple more things and try to make the video not too long. I want to talk about practice opportunities next, an example and a non-example. So the example of giving many practice opportunities would look like this. I want you to think about it in this way. You give some input, you ask a question, you get a response, you monitor students' success, and you give feedback. This is the explicit instruction. Every time you see these authors, Archer and Hughes, you know it's explicit instruction. So lessons are filled with opportunities for students to respond and demonstrate what they're learning. You're going to build in our turn and your turn sometimes and give many examples for students to practice. It will allow you to also check their understanding. That's a helpful tip. You want to know if your students are learning. Okay, now here's the non-example. The teacher talks, the teacher does something, the teacher shows something, this teacher says something, the teacher does something, and then the teacher says, see you tomorrow. And what do you think that leads to? Well, a lot of boredom, not a lot of learning, especially for students who cannot just learn by listening. Okay? Okay. You get the idea. So after you give lots of opportunities for practice, you also want immediate positive and corrective feedback. And the features of positive and effective feedback are specific, provided for noteworthy effort, don't praise everything, focused on achievement and effort, not always achievement, and compare students to their own progress rather than to others. Anita Archer calls this praise, encourage, and correct. PEC, praise, encourage, correct. Praise, that's right, Feng. The period at the end shows it's the end of the sentence. Correcting could be, since this is a telling sentence, we end it with a period. And encouraging might be, we are writing sentences now, not drawing. Okay, try to think about that. Maybe that'll be something that helps you monitor yourself in terms of giving feedback. Praise, encourage, and correct. Error correction is important when a student makes an academic error. Okay, so the teacher, if that happens, gives a model and checks again. So for example, modeling, providing the correct answer. And another way to deliver this is to stop a student from practicing an error, saying, stop, watch me, modeling and having the student repeat. And there is a little example, which is an oval. The kid points to a circle. No, that's a circle. This is the oval. Remember the oval shape now with a different set of pictures, which is the oval here. Okay, now we're going to watch just a little bit of a video. I'm going to see if I put this on the QR code. This is where we are, but I'm actually going to switch my tabs. Hang on a second. I have it up on my screen, and we're going to go to HLP 14. Nope, I need number 20. Okay, got to go back to 20. I didn't have it queued up the way I thought I did. So let's get going. I'm going to play it just the first few minutes, skipping our intro, which will give me a little bit of time to turn on my captions.
Falls under the instruction domain.
Subtitles.
The source for content in this video is from the HLP book published by CEC and the Cedar Center, a chapter by Devin Kearns and his colleagues in the HLP for Inclusive Classrooms book, and the National Center on Intensive Intervention website.
Okay, intensive intervention.
This video is split into two parts. In part 1, we provide a definition and rationale for intensifying instruction. In part 2, we highlight components of the data-based individualization process championed by the National Center on Intensive Intervention.
Okay, we're only doing part 1.
Part 1, definition and rationale. In a school-wide, multi-tiered system of support, the highest level of support is intensive intervention. Typically, this level of intervention, often referred to as Tier 3, is delivered by special educators interventionists, and other learning or behavior specialists. Intensive intervention is not a specific product or tool, but rather a process educators use to identify and provide evidence-based instruction for students with disabilities who demonstrate severe and persistent learning needs. In practice, intensifying intervention can mean reducing the size of instructional groups, adding instructional time to target a student-specific area of deficit, integrating academic or behavioral supports, tightening the link between student needs and intervention, and using strategies and tools that are not utilized in Tier 1 or even Tier 2. More intense intervention means students receive many opportunities to practice skills or other areas of need, and also receive individualized feedback. All decisions about the type and extent of intense instruction students receive is typically made by a team of professionals referencing student performance data, but it can also be completed by an individual special educator. Research indicates that it may take students with intensive needs, including those with disabilities, as much as 10 to 30 times more practice to master a skill compared to peers without disabilities. This means the dosage and pace of general education classroom instruction, and even some Tier 2 intervention programs, may be a mismatch for the individualized needs of many students with disabilities. Even when the evidence-based practices and intervention programs are used, some students still do not make adequate progress. They require something more. The National Center.
Okay, I'm going to pause. I'm going to exit. I want to make a comment. So I think by now, I hope by now, that you get a sense of this big idea on intense instruction. Intense instruction is individualized. Intense instruction is also the way it was described in the video just there is for kids with more severe disabilities than learning disabilities. So most kids with learning disabilities receive almost all of their instruction in the regular classroom with less intensive instruction than the students who have moderate to severe intellectual disabilities. So that's why I have one more slide. I'm just going to pull it up again to go to the presentation and to show and share the reason that I want to focus on cognitive and metacognitive strategies, and there's more to this video that I want to look at, is because in our class, you are going to be modeling and showing some information on intense instruction for reading, and to some extent, depending on which chapter you're doing, you're going to be including cognitive and metacognitive strategies. So let's see if we can go to that and look at it together. And I'm going to ask you to do something else for your entrance tickets. So let's go back to the video. Okay, this time I have it okay on my screen. Let me share it. And here we go. Okay. So I'll play this one.
Content in this video is the chapter by Shannon Budden and her colleagues from SUNY Buffalo State College in the book HLPs for Inclusive Classrooms, published by Routledge and CEC. This video is split into two parts. In part 1, we provide a definition and rationale for teaching cognitive and metacognitive strategies to support learning and independence. In part 2, we highlight two key principles for effectively using this HLP and demonstrate teachers using them in action.
Okay, before he goes on, I'm going to ask for your entrance ticket. Tell why it's important to teach this. Okay, and I'm going to ask you to also share the two things that he says are the key principles. Okay, so your exit ticket's a little longer this week. Here we go.
Let's start with an introduction. Using cognitive or metacognitive strategies includes two main components. First, students learn strategies to address a specific academic task or social behavioral concern, and then they evaluate the effects of the strategy on their performance. Cognitive strategies address the application of an approach, whereas metacognitive strategies focus on student self-evaluation and the effectiveness of the strategy.
Okay, so what was it? What was the cognitive? If you didn't catch that, go back and listen again.
To use and evaluate a strategy, students must be explicitly taught the purpose, functional steps, mental actions, and evaluation process for the strategy. Both types of strategies are used to support student memory, attention, and self-regulation of learning and behavior, and simultaneously help them keep one eye towards how well everything is working. In so doing, the strategies help students become self-directed, independent learners. In other words, when students learn and use a strategy,
electrify your metabolism back to teenage
sorry about
levels
that.
by eating 1/2 teaspoon of the
See if we can get rid of the ad. Hang on a second.
this with ice water and burning.
Okay,
they are essentially learning how to learn and then how to use the strategy to execute a skill or process. It's important to note that a strategy in this context is not merely a set of step-by-step instructions, but instead is an instructional technique.
oh, we lost those captions. Hang on.
That can facilitate learning and generalization.
All right. I find that now the subtitles are back in English. That's not very good. Hang on a second. Let's try and get that back up for you. And do it quickly. Go to the closed captions again. Don't know why it changed back to English for some reason. Okay, here we go.
Across a number of situations, contexts, and types of academic content. Strategies can also scaffold success for students across academic and behavioral domains at the same time. Strategies help students become better problem solvers. That is, through learning and using strategies, students become more adept at identifying problem areas, developing and using solutions to address the difficulties, monitoring their learning and progress, and reflecting on how well the solution worked. The teacher plays a critical role in student use of strategies. The high leverage practice of teaching students what, how, and when to engage in cognitive and metacognitive strategy use is the key. Thus, strategies must be explicitly taught in order to be effective. While some students may be able to develop or figure out strategies on their own, students with disabilities and others who struggle often need instruction in specific strategies, including when and how to use them, coupled with practice and feedback. Using the principles of explicit instruction, including clear language, modeling, guided practice, providing feedback, and independent practice, teachers should help students understand what cognitive and metacognitive strategies are, as well as how and when to use them effectively. Please see video number 16 in this series for more information on explicit instruction. In addition to being explicitly taught, cognitive and metacognitive strategies should be embedded in academic and non-academic lessons, so students can experience the various ways in which these strategies are used to learn specific academic content. Integrating cognitive and metacognitive strategies into content helps students monitor and evaluate their performance during authentic tasks and can help them generalize strategies to other content and settings.
Okay, so he's going to continue. I realize he's not giving an example yet of a specific cognitive strategy. It's in the video. I'm not going to play the entire video for you, but let's just review. What are the reasons for using cognitive strategies? They help students learn how to do tasks. For example, reading comprehension, how to accomplish the comprehension of a passage that you're reading. You could have a strategy for doing that. He's going to talk a little bit more about metacognitive strategies, which is about the use and the reflection on the ability to use them. And that is also helpful for students to learn the strategies themselves. Okay, I'm going to continue for just a minute or two more.
One example of a cognitive strategy in mathematics is the solve it method of problem solving. This requires the student to read a problem for understanding, paraphrase the problem into their own words, visualize a picture or diagram of the problem, make a plan to solve the problem, estimate the answer, do the arithmetic to solve, and then check it to make sure everything is right. While using the solve it strategy for problem solving, students self-monitor by asking themselves guided questions after performing each step in the strategy procedure. For example, after reading the problem, students are taught to ask themselves, have I read and understood the problem? By asking and answering guided questions after each step in the solve it procedure, students learn to monitor and assess their work. When students use a metacognitive strategy, they self-monitor their learning or behavior and evaluate effectiveness.
Okay, I think that's enough of the video. We have another commercial coming in, and so it's saying time to stop. So then overview of cognitive and metacognitive strategies. That's all that was. So I'd like you to, on your entrance ticket, try your best to answer the questions that I've asked you. If you think that the questions are not clear or you are not sure of the answers, then you can let us know on your entrance ticket. All right, I'm going to let you go and talk to you in class. I look forward to seeing everyone soon. Take care. Have a good start to your week. Bye-bye.